Tales of Mithrym.
At the Sign of the Running Horse, narrated by Dolynuik, Part 2, Short Rest. A strong smell of hops and tobacco met Elvin's nose the moment he opened the door and walked inside. People were merrily drinking and smoking around the many small tables and benches laid out around the rather large room. To his left stretched a long bar with 8 or so staff tending to their customers. The bar was not too crowded, as most of the patrons had not come without companions to sit and talk with. On the farthest side of the room, between the long counter and the tables, was a small stage on which musicians were eagerly setting up their instruments for another set. Elvin breathed out pleasantly as he took it all in, then headed towards the center of the counter where he could see a gap among the regulars. He dropped his pack by a stool and sat down. He closed his eyes for a moment, almost falling asleep as the sudden comfort and relief of his surroundings rushed over him after such a long day's journey with barely a rest. He rubbed his neck and tried to focus. A bald, rather hunched bartender made his way to Elvin. His clothes hung off him and his face was pink from work and heat. "How may I be of service to you, my lord?" the bartender said with a smile. "I beg your pardon," Elvin frowned. "It is Cyrus Redark, my lord, but please call me Cyrus." The man continued with the same broad smile. "Pardon me if I was overly observant, but it is quite clear to me from your noble brow and your strong features that you are from the Western nobility, yes? And on top of that, you are a lieutenant judging by the silver plate stitched on the breast of your uniform, yes?" Cyrus laughed a hollow laugh. "Because I do not think a nobleman would steal such a uniform, ha. Yes? So, you see, it is rather impressive seeing such a high-ranking noble soldier such as yourself in this dim corner of the land." Elvin chuckled politely. He knew his heritage well enough, although he did not much care for it. Was he really that easy to spot? "Your eyes are certainly quite sharp, Mr. Redark," he smiled. Cyrus bowed low. "I will have whiskey, if you please." His stomach turned. "And whatever meat, soup, and bread you serve for supper." "At once, my lord." "Also, could you fix me a room?" His muscles ached. "With a hot shower, if possible. I will pay up front." Cyrus clapped to another of the bartenders. "It will be arranged at once, my lord." Minutes later, Elvin was presented with a bowl of hot food. He had just started eating when suddenly noticed that the musicians had started playing again. The laughter from one of the tables cut through the sound and drew his attention. Chewing a piece of meat, he looked over his shoulder to see what was happening. He nearly spat out the whole mouthful as his eyes fell on a hulk of a man dancing the silliest dance he had ever seen. Elvin gulped his food down and watched the enormous, muscular, and heavily armored man dancing and raising cackles of laughter from all around him. He soon realized that that large man was not much of a man at all. He must be younger than Elvin, and by a significant margin at that. The young man was certainly big for his age, though. Elvin could hardly imagine a recruiting officer turning him down. Not with those muscles. He was reminded of one of the soldiers who had served under him. No longer alive, Ian rest his soul. And with that, Elvin tensed again. He sighed and turned his attention back to his food. In the corner of his eye, Elvin noticed a movement from across the room. Almost imperceivable in this raucous room. He turned to look and saw a woman cautiously entering the bar and quietly closing the door behind her. The woman's head and face were hidden by a red scarf, and she wore a pale blue frock coat. Her general traveling attire looked worn. As she came in, she loosened her scarf and let it fall on her shoulder, revealing a pale face and bright red hair. Much like the young man, she was barely an adult, although she dressed more like a traveling tradesman. She dug her hair out of her clothes and let it fall over her shoulder and began scanning the room from under her furrowed brows in a way that put Elvin in mind of a fisherman looking for fish in the lake to catch with a spear. The young woman's gaze met his own for a moment, then she quickly looked away. He returned his focus to the food in front of him. A few moments later, he was surprised to hear a quiet but clear voice to his left. The girl was now sitting a few seats down from him and was ordering her own food and beer. Seeing her more closely, she looked very tired and seemed quite withdrawn, even nervous. He wondered if perhaps she was not from around here either. With a large slamming sound on the floor behind him, the laughter around the big young man behind Elvin reached its peak and died down. Elvin heard heavy, unsteady footsteps make their way towards him. The young man stank of ale as he slumped down onto the seat to Elvin's immediate right. He sounded happy and was breathing heavily as he bashed the huge mug on the counter and yelled for a refill. He had a wide grin on his face that Elvin suspected did not go away even when this stranger was not as tight as an owl. The younger man took notice of Elvin and gawked at him through glassy green eyes, and soon his grin widened even more. "Oh, look who we have here!"
Tales of Mithrym are written by Jimmy Clephane. Mithrym is a fantasy world built for the Dungeon Room role-playing game system. To find out more about the world of Mithrym, or to try out the game, go to www.mithrym.com.